Ducking is a very useful technique in electronic music for a multitude of reasons. Whether if you need to clean up the mix and make more room for the kick to punch through, or if you want to use more creative ducking for more rhythmic bass and pad sounds, then finding the right ducking instrument to get you the perfect results is important. So today's video is sponsored by Cable Guys. I'm going to show you why I enjoy using Kickstart 2, which is by electronic music star Nicky Romero and Cable Guys. It's a really fun and simple tool to use, and you can get some great results. By the way, my name is Stranger. If you want to improve your music production and sound design, especially with dance music and drum and bass, then this channel is for you. Comment down below. Let me know what is your favorite ducking instrument. And if you're interested in grabbing Kickstart 2, make sure you check the link below. Anyways, without further ado, let's go right into it. So what I like about this tool is that it has a really easy and simple interface that can help you get some results right away. So with Kickstart 2, you now have audio triggering. So now you can send a sidechain signal such as a kick into Kickstart 2, and this allows you to sidechain for other styles of music that are not 4/4, especially useful when you write bass heavy music such as drum and bass or trap, where you need to duck an 808 bass with the kick or something like that. Other new features that are really useful include being able to shift the slope as well as the bandpass mode, which allows for invisible sidechaining. So you sidechain only the bass, but we'll get into all of that later. All right, to start, I'm just going to build up a beat. I'm going to use the rollers kit so I can get some quick results here. So here's a kick pattern. Here's the snare. And then here's a secondary snare. Here's some hi-hats, jungle shaker, and then I'm layering it with some amens. And I'm just using the kick and the rides of the amens. So put that all together, we have this. I'm using the drum bus here just to make sure it's nice and thick. All right, and let's add a sub bass. I'm going to use the wobble instrument from the rollers kit and simply playing a simple sine wave, and it's only playing one note. So this is what we have right now. Let's add some harmonics with the macro so we can hear what's happening with the bass. Okay, that sounds good. All right, and let's add Kickstart 2, and it's playing at the end of this bass chain, and with the sidechain signal, I'm using the kick channel as a sidechain to trigger Kickstart here. As you can see, you get results right away. You get some really clean ducking results with Kickstart 2 here. What I find really useful is the visualizer here. Not only can you see the bass signal, but you can also see the kick signal, which is really helpful. Because now you can see if the ducking is wide enough to cover the entire length of the kick. So for example, let's make the kick a bit longer. So I'm going to go back into the modular kick instrument. Let's change the macro length from 135 milliseconds to say, yeah, let's say 200 milliseconds and see how that looks on the visualizer. Let's make it a bit longer. So you can see it's already going past the line. Let's make it maybe 275 milliseconds. Let's check it out now. So you can see now, obviously, the kick is going past the ducking signal, which means we need to duck the bass more to let that kick float through, right? Now, the kick is pretty long here, so this is probably not an ideal scenario. But just for the sake of this exercise, you can see now you can move the slope just by clicking and dragging here. So you can accommodate the kick. So this is a really helpful tool. And that sounds really good now. Let's go back and shorten that kick a little. That's probably a bit too long. That's probably better. So now we can afford to make the length of this or the slope come in earlier. So again, very helpful because now you can eyeball it. Before, you would have to guess and kind of estimate, like, is that enough to cover the length of the kick, right? But now you know for sure. That's all right. I'm just going to shorten the kick a little more. I just think maybe for the sake of this track, it's probably better to have a shorter kick anyways. Yeah, around there. So now we can afford to bring this up. So another thing I really like about this tool is all these shapes that you have at your disposal. So really quickly, you can just add different shapes, and each one of these shapes have a different kind of vibe and character to the ducking. So it gives you a really cool rhythmic sound to your bass. I like that kind of shark fin shape there. Now, another thing you can do with these little arrow buttons on the bottom is you can nudge and shift the entire shape. So sometimes what I like to do is I like to have a bit of an attack or tip at the very beginning. So you get, it kind of helps with the punchiness of the sound. So you get a bit of a start to the sound, so you know that this sound starts at that point. Because if it just ducks right away, it just sounds like it's playing on the offbeat. But if you have a little bit of information at the beginning, the listener perceives this as, oh, this is a sound that gets ducked, and that gives it more of that cool ducking effect. So what you can do is you can use these arrows and shift it over. You can use the big arrow to move like 5-10 steps forward. So having a bit of tip like that kind of helps. This is especially helpful when you're using ducking for other kind of melodic instruments like pads and whatnot. That's when you really want to have this tip here. Maybe not for bass because you don't want it to overlap with the subs of the kick. So just be careful of that. Maybe you can have a little because the attack of the kick typically doesn't have low end. So maybe like a really short bit is fine. And then of course you can dial the mix. Currently it's 100% ducked, but you can dial between the dry and wet signal. So if you don't want it to duck completely to 0, then you can dial the mix back, right? Another thing you can do is turn on this band mode so that only the signal within this yellow range gets ducked. So anything above it will pass through. And that's helpful if you want the mid-range of the bass to stay. This kind of type of methodology is useful for like Reese basses or basses with more of a high and mid-range where you want to keep that range playing, but you want to duck the sub bass, right? So currently we've been using the audio mode of Kickstart where it uses a sidechain signal such as the kick to trigger the ducking. But another cool feature I really like is the MIDI triggering. So if you click on MIDI up here, now you can set the Kickstart to trigger every time there's a new MIDI note. And this is really cool for making more rhythmic bass sounds. And that way you don't actually need a kick to trigger it. So this is very helpful. Now, if you're using Ableton, just make sure you have an instrument rack and you have an external instrument here that sets and that you have an external instrument here which sends the MIDI information to Kickstart 2 over here. Now, in this pattern, I have multiple notes so that when I enable Kickstart 2, it's going to trigger that ducking every time the new note plays. And this can give you some really fun results. Let's try adding some additional patterns here. So maybe like that. So really fun results by using this MIDI mode. You can create some really cool rhythmic basses. Fun stuff. All right, let's try Kickstart 2 with some other sounds. So let's try this zinger stab from the Rollers kit and have this stab pattern playing. Let's add some undertone to this sound. And let's add some delay to make this a little more trippy. Okay, and now I have Kickstart. Once again, it's being triggered with a sidechain signal coming from the kick. Let's hear it with this pattern. And we can add a bit of a send delay to kind of make it sound a little bit wetter. That's cool. Let's hear it with the beat. That sounds really good. This without. That's dope. That sounds like some techno jungle right there. Let's see what happens if we increase the amount of kicks. That sounds pretty trippy. Let's try dialing the mix back a bit just to hear it with more of the dry signal. Let's move the slope a little. Very dope results. Really fun using this plugin. All right, let's try a different vibe this time. Let's change up the beat. Let's use a two-step drum and bass pattern. And then I have some MIDI notes here using Dead Mouse and Cascades I Remember. So I'm using the chords and bass lines and doing a drum and bass remix of it. Let's add some Kickstart too. Let's shift that over to match the kick. right, that's sounding dope, and let's add some pads over it. So here's a really cool function. So not only can you move the slope and the start points of this, remember we want a tip, especially for pads. It's nice to have a bit of this tip here. Let's try that again. We gotta use this shape. Add a bit of a tip. So for long pad sounds, you see this end point, it dips down, this yellow point dips down. So you hear it go pumped and back up and then down. So this is really useful. You can just move the end point of this slope. So if you don't need that dip down, you can move this over here. And that'll keep the pad playing after the initial duck. Let's try the other shapes. So again, I like that bit of a tip at the beginning. For ducking like this, rhythmic ducking, it's better to hear over the beat because then you can hear in context to how it works with, because it's kind of creating kind of like a polyrhythm on top of the beat. So it's better to hear in context. Nice, so we have some super cool future electro drum and bass going on here. Let's play with this a little more. I'm gonna play with automating some of the macros and filters, and let's hear it one more time. It's super fun when you have a really good beat and you have some elements playing. When you add some creative ducking, it starts to bring all the elements together and makes it a little more rhythmic, a little more groovier, and you can create something really special by adding these simple techniques. So I encourage you guys to play with rhythmic ducking. It can really add another dimension to your sounds. If you're interested in grabbing Kickstart 2, you can check it down in the link below. Alright, as you can see, Kickstart 2 is a really fun tool that can get you ducking results really quickly. It's really easy and you can get some super dope results. I really like the multitude of different shapes and the options you have with moving and shaping the slope, as well as the number of different options, including being able to trigger it with audio or MIDI, not to mention the bandpass mode. It's a neat little tool that packs in some really good features all in one plugin. And remember, you can use ducking for a multitude of reasons, from enhancing your mix, making more room for your kick, or using it for more rhythmic and creative purposes, such as creating a more rhythmic bass or pad as we did with this track. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. All that helps my channel grow. And remember, if you want to grab Kickstart 2, you can check it down in the link below. Anyways, that's pretty much it for today, guys. Thanks for watching, keep practicing, and I'll see you at the next video. Hey, if you want to support, you can check out my products in the link below. My rollers kit for Ableton is out now, containing 23 modular instruments and over 400 MIDI and audio patterns. Use it to spark creativity for your next track. For the most upfront sounds in bass music, you can grab my gnarly serum pack or wubs and wobbles for Vital. You can also check out my jungle and liquid Ableton production kits. Hint, if you don't have Ableton, you can grab the wave packs. If you're not ready to buy yet, you can always check out my free products also in the link below. Anyways, always appreciate your support. Have fun creating!